Welcome. You are watching the video Anatomy of a Statute Part 1, Unannotated Code Sections. This video is for Western State College of Law, course number MC6000. This video will introduce you to different parts of a statute, specifically of unannotated code sections. In the next video, we'll introduce you to different parts of an annotated code section. These two videos together will help you recognize different elements of a statute, so that when you encounter statutes, you can make sense of them and better understand them. We're looking here at an unannotated federal statute, specifically 29 U.S.C. section 623. We know that we're looking at 29 U.S.C. 623 because of the citation here. This particular statute that we're looking at right now is from the U.S. Code, a free version of the U.S. Code, available online at the House of Representatives website. You can tell because of the house.gov portion of the URL. In a later video, we'll show you how you can access the U.S. Code online and search it, both in paid databases and in free databases like this one. But for now, we've pre-selected the statute in order to show you the different parts of an unannotated code section. Now, this statute starts right here where the cursor is. This first part is the section number. In this case, section number 623. Now, we know we're in Title 29 of the U.S. Code based on various visual cues. Right here, we see that we're in Title 29. The 29 portion of the citation tells us that we're in Title 29. So we see here that we're in Title 29, etc. Any of these serves to let us know that we're in Title 29. Now, if we were looking at this statute in a bound print volume, that particular volume would be the volume for Title 29. So that's how we would know if we were reading this in a print bound book. Now, next to the section number here, where it says Prohibition of Age Discrimination, this is something called the caption, or the heading, or the name of the code section. It's a general description of this statute, and it tells you what it covers. Simple enough. Now, starting here at subsection A, all the way down through here, the end of subsection M, all of this is the text, the actual text of the statute. This is the language of the law that Congress enacted. Now, as we can see, this statute has many subsections. Right here, this is section 623 sub A. Right here, this is section 623 sub B. This is section 623 sub C, and so on and so forth. And as you notice, even the subsections have their own subsections. There are different levels of subsections. So while all of this is section 623 sub F, this right here is section 623 sub F, sub 2, sub B, sub Romanet II. So that's just sort of how you can kind of tell and look at the different level of the subsection you're dealing with. Now, after the language of the statute, in parentheses, right here, again, the actual language, the text of the statute ends right here, and with this parentheses right here, this is what is sometimes referred to as the source law, or the source credit, or the history line. This shows you the history of the statute, from when it was enacted all the way through the various amendments that it's gone through. Now, this would be a good time for me to briefly mention how statutes are published. Now, when they're first enacted, statutes are published one at a time as slip laws. And slip laws are just individual, separate pamphlets that have the language of the law as passed by Congress. At the federal level, these statutes are given a unique public law number or private law number. Now, legal research primarily deals with public laws because private laws apply to specific individuals or organizations, whereas public laws apply to the public generally. And so when we're doing legal research, we are usually looking for those laws that apply to the public generally. Now, for the most part, only public laws make it into the U.S. Code. anyway. I think it's pretty rare for private laws to actually be codified. Now, after each legislative session, which at the federal level and most state levels is every 2 years. So every 2 years, there's a new legislative session at the federal level. So after each one of those legislative sessions, the slip laws are compiled and published in chronological order as something called session laws. So what session laws are is basically a chronological compilation of all the legislative acts that are passed in a given legislative session. Now, federal session laws are published in something called the United States Statutes at Large. That's essentially what the publication is called. Finally, statutes are published as what we see here, a codified version, a code section. And if you recall, code sections are basically just all the statutes currently in force arranged topically, arranged by subject matter. Now, a law passed by Congress, which are also called acts, sometimes call them acts of Congress, those laws can cover a wide range of topics, and each section of that congressional act can be codified at different parts of the code, even different titles of the U.S. Code. That's possible. Now, going back then to this source law, this history line here, we can apply what I've just mentioned to sort of decipher all of these letters and numbers. So if we look at this first part right here where it says Pub L 90-202, that's the public law number. And it's the public law number for the congressional act that enacted this code section, 29 U.S.C. 623. What the 90-202 of the public law number means is that congressional act was enacted in the 90th congressional session, and it was the 202nd public law that was enacted in that legislative session. Okay, so those are what the numbers of a public law number mean. The number before the dash means which congressional session it was, and the number after the dash means in chronological order which numbered act that was in that legislative session. Right here, this section 4 means it was section 4 of this particular congressional act, of this public law, that actually enacted this entire code section 623 of Title 29. And it's section 4 because the section numbering in the congressional act can be different than the section numbering of the code section. Here, this section number is section 623 of Title 29. In that congressional act, though, it was section 4 of that particular act which enacted this particular code section. This date here, December 15th, 1967, that just tells you the date that this public law, this was enacted. Simple enough. Now, this section right here, 81 Stat 603, this is a citation to the statutes at large. And if you recall, I mentioned that the United States statutes at large is where the federal session laws are published. So that means this public law was published in volume 81 of the U.S. statutes at large at page 603. So basically, this right here just tells you this is when essentially this code section was born and where you can find the actual congressional act that gave us this code section. All of these citations afterwards are for amendments. This just basically tells you all the times that this particular code section was amended by Congress. It gives you the public law numbers, the section numbers of those acts, the dates that those laws were enacted, and where you can find them in the statute, the United States statutes at large. So that's basically what this is, the source law / history line. All of this information after the source law, including the references in text, amendments, effective dates of amendments, these are notes. They're notes to the statute. They can come in the form of statutory notes or editorial notes, and essentially what they do is they give you additional information about the statute, the code section that you're looking at. Some notes can contain verbatim language from session laws. If you want more information on these notes after the statute, as well as any other aspect of the U.S. Code, you want to take a look at the detailed guide to the United States Code content and features. I'll show you really quickly how you can access that. If you just go to the U.S. Code at the House of Representatives website, uscode.house.gov, right here on the left, if you click on Understanding the Code and then click on Detailed Guide to the Code, this gives you a good overview of how the U.S. Code works, basically. So this, just some fun reading for you all, if you choose to read it. It's actually very informative. So that basically is all the different elements of a federal statute, specifically of an unannotated federal statute. Let's take a quick look now at, let me just go back to the top. Let's take a quick look now at the parts of a state statute. Now, here we see a Rhode Island statute. And this is just from the Rhode Island Legislature's website. It's available for free online. And again, in a future video, we'll show you where you can go to access these free statutes, federal statutes and state statutes. So let's just take a quick look at this code section. As you can see, the parts of this unannotated state statute, this Rhode Island statute, are pretty similar to the unannotated federal statute. We have the section number here in which case section 12-5-3. We have the caption, or the heading or name of the statute. Here it's issuance and contents. And then we have the text of the statute right here, right, with all its subsections: sub A, sub 1, sub A, sub 2, sub A, sub 3, and then sub B. However, oh yes, and of course, finally here we have the source law, or again the history line of this particular statute. So what's missing in this state statute that we had in the federal statute? Well, basically, in this federal statute, we had all of these notes right here, starting with the references and text, that followed the source law. Whereas we don't have those notes here in the state statute. And that's going to be actually quite common. Federal statutes will almost always have these notes, statutory and editorial notes, after the statute. That is not going to be common with state statutes. It's, state legislatures, they usually don't have the support necessary or the editors necessary to provide that in that unannotated form. So that's going to be a key difference. So if you're looking for those notes after the state statute, know that when you're looking at unannotated code sections, specifically of state statutes, you're often not going to find that. So that about wraps up this video. Now, we've seen different parts of an unannotated code section. We should have a pretty good sense of what they are. In the next video that we're going to watch, we're going to deal with the parts of an annotated code section. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.